Are we good?
Yeah,
We're all
good.
here. The gang. We're Gucci.
The gang's
The
back.
gang's
gang.
all here.
The gang's all here. Well, welcome everybody. Episode 116 of Anime on Draft, Adaptations and Little Bits. Great title. So yeah, welcome everybody. We got we got Little Bits and we got the whole crew too. Alec, Rolando, and Mark are joining me, your host Drew, for this week's episode. Fortunately or unfortunately, this week it is continuation of Sober September, so no beer this week. But I think you guys got some tea. I got some nice fizzy water with a metal straw.
Ooh, fancy.
No, we're gonna be staying hydrated out here. So it's been pretty hot lately. So
It's been comfortable. It's only been 90s, which is. I never thought I would say.
Only
like,
the 90s.
It's only been in like the mid to almost high 90s. I'm like, oh my god, it's so nice outside. It's beautiful. And then I
It's miserable.
paused for a second and I was like, what the fuck am I saying? What have I become?
So no beer to cool us down this week, but we're making do. We're surviving. We do have a beer topic though, so we'll get into that in just a little bit. And kind of what I alluded to in the title, we're going to be talking about anime adaptations a little bit later. So I got some guided discussion that will happen for that. I'm looking forward to it. We'll also talk a little bit about Fire Force and Danmachi. Nothing too crazy going on, but we'll mention it, and then some news, and we'll get out of here. So, without further ado, I kind of came up with this randomly, but our beer topic for this week is a brewery you haven't been to, but would really like to go to and or try their beer. So you don't necessarily have to go physically there unless you want to, but generally you want to just try their beer too. So. I don't know who wants to start. Mark, let's start with you, buddy.
Marky.
Yeah. So I have two that I would one for sure that I would really want to either visit or at least try their beer. And this is a brewery that if you're any sort of like into craft brew or you follow any sort of like Instagram accounts, you see people posting beers. Instagram accounts. You see people posting beers from Treehouse and just talking about how good they are. I mean, this is one of the breweries that is at the top of my list that I really want to go try. I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about their beers, about the Julius. So it's been hyped up, and I have heard that the hype, lives up to it. So I really want to go check out Treehouse. That's definitely up there. Yeah, it's outside of Boston, maybe about a 2-hour drive or so.
Oh, okay.
So when I was in Boston last year, yeah, I hear it's really nice. And I hear the brewery itself is really nice too. When I went out to Boston last year, I didn't get to try any, and I mean, like, they keep it pretty locked down for like where they ship it out to. So yeah, that's probably number one on my list.
Probably like a distance thing with how they bottle or can it. They're like, we only want it to go this far for freshness or whatever.
It's like a Pliny type of thing. Or, if you're not local to the area, or if you don't go into the brewery itself, you just have a really tough time finding it anywhere.
It's like that Belgian
if you
brewery where they only sell it there and they only make like 400 or whatever. I don't know. And the line's like 6 hours long or something.
I know which one you're talking about because I tried to get beer from them while I was in the Netherlands, and they were like, yeah, they stopped selling us the beer because we were reselling it, and they don't like that.
Yeah. They're like,
Whoops.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. I mean, if you're into like, the craft beer scene, or if you follow a lot of accounts, maybe you can find somebody who might be willing to do a trade with you. I have like kind of thought about it, and I have follow a couple people that are willing to do that. So I think I might reach out to some people and see if they're willing to trade with some West Coast Southern California beers. I think that would be cool. So the other one that I just want to mention is Omnipolo. Just seeing all the crazy types of beer that they have coming out, and they're mainly out in Europe. So I think I would definitely want to go check them out.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Couple
Good
good
picks.
suggestions there.
I love Boston,
Um,
so I'll go with you.
Yeah, we can go check out Trillium, man. That place is
Yeah.
good.
Alec, you have a brewery you'd like to go to?
Yeah, so for me, this is one of the beers that when I took that beer class back in college and I first started my journey on craft beer, I guess, was one of my favorites and still to this day is my favorite for the style. But I would love to go to the Allagash Brewery in Maine. And I have heard that their brewery tour is amazing. They have a free one, but then they have a paid one. Apparently, it's like the Firestone one. It's 3 hours long. They go through like the whole brew process on a lot of their beers specifically and tell you all that information. So it just sounds super dope. And I like their beers, especially the Allagash White, which is the best white ale I've ever had. But
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
done it on the
all that
show.
matters.
One of the
We
first
have.
ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good one.
Allagash. And, you know, it's not too far from Massachusetts. We just
Make that drive
we
down
make
there.
that
Trip.
trip. We're going to do the trip in
That sounds like a
California.
good
We'll
trip.
do the trip on the East Coast.
I'm
Let's
gonna
do
give
it.
you a spoiler too. The one that I'm going to say is in Vermont, so
Oh.
it's all up there.
It's all stuff that
Um,
we can't get to.
Yeah, but before I go, Rolando, what's your choice for this?
Well, I was gonna say Allagash, but Alec already said it.
Hey.
So
we can have two.
my other option is going to Russian River and getting Pliny the Younger
Fresh.
fresh off tap, and then also having fresh Pliny the Elder. That's my second choice, but my first choice was Allagash.
Why?
Yeah.
I'm just curious.
Why? Because I've always been a fan of Allagash. Like since the first, I believe one of the first craft beers I had was Allagash White.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's a
and
real
I
game
do-
changer.
I do like Belgian style ales. I was really disappointed that I couldn't have it was like the raspberry truffle from Allagash that was like a limited release. I want to say
This
in
was
the
a-
beginning of this year,
Mhm.
but he had the raspberry truffle ale from Avery. That was a good beer too. So I was just, I wanted to try the Allagash one because I've always been a fan of their beers.
Yeah,
They make good beers.
Fair enough.
yeah. Cool.
Russian River has some pretty good pizza there too, so
Ooh.
We'll
Yeah.
make a trip there.
always worth it.
We'll make a
Yeah.
trip there.
Make the Firestone trip and then keep going 5 more hours.
Keep going.
Just keep
Why
going
not?
on the
Why
5.
not? We'll just all pile
And
in
then
the
we'll
car.
end up in Elysian and
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, there you go.
All right. So mine, I have a couple that I wanted to mention. The first one is in the northeast, Vermont, like I said, and it is called Alchemist Brewery.
Oh, yeah, I was
or
thinking about
the Alchemist. I'll throw a link in the chat there for their website because they have like pictures of their beers and things like that. But this is something you see on the craft beer subreddit a lot. People going
Heady
on
topper.
tours and yeah, exactly. The one that I want to try is an American IPA. It's called Focal Banger, and it's probably one of their more iconic beers. But they have a little bit of everything. I'm kind of just going through the list. They have like American IPAs, double IPAs, growing down a little bit more in British Imperial Stouts, Pilsners, Kolsch's, Dark IPA. That sounds really good. And everything down to American Ale with cherries.
If you follow, you're familiar with Tornado, right, in San Diego. Follow their Instagram account. They've been getting like a regular, like not like super regular, but like at least once a month. I see on their Instagram or on their stories that they have some like heady topper.
Ooh.
So you can go there and try it.
Yeah.
So, just a little
I haven't been
FYI.
to Tornado, whatever you want to call it.
Tornado,
I haven't
yes,
been there in a long time because everything around it's like blown up and like trying to park around there is impossible. But if they
Oh, yeah.
get the heady topper, I want to try it. It's that American Dippa
Mhm.
looks delicious. So, The other one I wanted to mention is Funky Buddha. I've had beer from there, but I haven't actually gone. And they're kind of like what we were talking about before, where they don't like to ship their beers. They don't put preservatives or anything in them, so it kind of limits where it can go. But their Hefeweizen is like super good. They have a maple bacon coffee porter that you guys would really enjoy. It is
Sounds pretty
like
good.
it sounds crazy, but it's like they do it really well. It's like perfectly balanced. And yeah, same thing with the Alchemist. They have like a little bit of everything in there, and their can art and art in general is very cool. So I'll throw that in the chat as well. So those are mine. Yeah, I wanna go. Like you guys mentioned, Allagash. That's another one that I would like to go to. Mark, you mentioned some that another interesting one. So
Yeah,
it's we'll have to make an East Coast trip. There's a lot out there.
I think so. Yeah,
I
Treehouse
also-
is definitely up there.
Would love to make a Colorado trip. Because there's a lot of good ones in
Deschutes.
Colorado. Yeah, Deschutes, Avery. I'm drawing a blank, but some good ones right there. So
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of good things about Chicago too, and I didn't realize that somebody posted up like most breweries in a city, and I think Chicago was like at the top of the list. But I had no idea. I really didn't
I didn't
think
know
that there
either.
were so many breweries or microbreweries in Chicago.
let's see. I'm googling most breweries per capita. It's Portland, Maine.
I know. I
That's
was
per
gonna say,
capita.
Yeah, per capita. I was just. That's just the easiest thing to
Yeah.
Google though.
Well, hopefully, at least one of us makes it to one of our destination breweries. I
or
think that
all
would
of
be
us
pretty
as
cool.
a group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
I think one of the realistic ones I really want to check out Bottle Logic, and that's like down in like Costa Mesa area. I've had a few of their beers, and I think that one's manageable. That we can do relatively soon.
Soon
Because
and
I
cheaply.
hear like nothing. Yeah, I hear like
Yeah.
there's a lot of good stuff coming out of Bottle Logic. Like I think the Tuscan Grain. I think that's one of them. One of their main ones. That one's it's a really good beer. So Bottle Logic, let's put that on the list and let's make the trek out there.
They did the BlizzCon beers, didn't they?
They
and,
did.
And we all kind of didn't like the
We're
ones from
huge
last
fans.
year.
No,
But
I like.
their bottled
I
beer
liked-
is really good though. Like the beer that they ship out is really good.
Yeah.
I wasn't a huge fan of the the BlizzCon beers.
I liked
had some good
I
ones.
liked the sour.
The sour.
The
was
sour,
good.
The
Yeah,
sour
sour
was
was
good.
good.
The stout wasn't
It was-
terrible.
It was really sour.
I liked
Yeah,
it.
but it had the
Mondo
farmhouse
sour.
aftertaste that you hate.
Yeah. I thought it was super refreshing
Really
too because
sour.
it was pretty hot. But
Yeah, it was hot that weekend. Anyway, moving into our anime topic this week. So Mark came up with the idea to talk about anime adaptations. And so what is an anime adaptation? It's taking a manga, transferring it to anime, and also taking a light novel and transferring it to anime. So those are kind of like our two main focuses for this particular segment. We got a few topics kind of going in, and so I guess we'll start with our manga to anime section. First little segment here: selection of material to be included or cut out. So obviously you have like a set time period for an anime, and you have to take the source material and figure out what parts to include, what parts not to include. So that's definitely an important part of the process, but I don't know. Open it up to you guys. Other than explaining the overall of this section, anything that anyone wants to add in particular?
Rolando, do you want to start off with? I mean, like I'm not sure how we can go about. Like I know we've mentioned a lot of works before, and these are some of the shows that we've done shots on, like Koe no Katachi, Silent Voice, Shield Hero, Vinland Saga, which is currently airing. But I think if we're like focusing on like material that's to be left out, I mean, Rolando, I think you have a pretty compelling argument about stuff that gets left out of adaptations.
Yeah. So it's like if you want to check out our shot on Koi no Katachi, where we talk about the movie and kind of how. Yeah, I think you were.
I think so.
Um, we released that one like a year and a half ago or something like that. But that one we talked about the movie, and Mark and I were coming into it as people who had read the manga first, so we came into it with like a different viewpoint, and so like it's a good movie, but like we had our qualms with it on like what was adapted. But then like a lot of people look at that movie and really love it. So like I think that KyoAni and the staff, they did a very good job of making a standalone movie, but in terms of an adaptation, there are some things that we had issues with as coming from the source material. But a more recent anime, like one that's currently airing right now, that I have some issues with is Araburu, or O Maidens in Your Savage Season. So this is a current shonen. It's a shonen anime, but it's about
shonen
it's
anime?
a shonen. Yeah, it's publicized in a shonen magazine.
Is this the
didn't know that.
literature club one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one is the one that the manga that's penned by Okada Mari, and she's like a pretty well-known writer. She's done stuff like A Lull in the Sea,
That
Anohana,
anime.
Gundam Bloodstained Orphans or whatever. She's done a lot of very highly regarded shows, and
Bloom Into You, that aired, or that was a movie that came out last year.
yes, she's done a lot, and so the manga that she's penning the story for is currently has an anime adaptation going on, but I've been having issues with going between the manga and the adaptation, mainly because the main character, Kazusa, has like almost no development, and there's no kind of, you don't see the reasoning why she acts a certain way in the anime than you do while you're reading the manga. And I noticed this because I watched the first episode of the show and was like, "Oh, this show looks interesting." When I was in London, I bought the first 2 volumes of the manga and read it, and I was like, "Wait, like there's a lot of stuff that was left out that was just kind of Kazusa's viewpoint, and not like talking head viewpoint, but it's like stuff that you have in manga, like people's
Interior
like,
thoughts or something.
dialogues, yeah, that might not necessarily be something you would put just to voice necessarily, but like I feel play a lot to her character. So there was a lot of missing information, and so I felt like I thought this character was just like pretty dull, and was a drag in the show. But in the manga, she's like significantly a lot more likable and relatable. So just in terms of character development, I feel like due to the change of mediums, there's a huge challenge to adapting these like especially just manga and light novel adaptations. There's just so much that like gets lost in translation, like literally lost in translation between mediums.
I think that's it's something that's like it reminds me of another show that's also currently airing. So Ari Faretta, or The Commonplace to World's Strongest, the anime that like the first couple episodes that aired were just terrible. I mean, the very first episode, I just laughed because the animation was just really poor. Plot made no sense. I mean, there was a flashback within the first 30 seconds that I didn't even know was flashback. CG was really bad. I mean, these are just like design, like mistakes that weren't in the manga. So I went back and read it, and I read a lot of like reviews, and we're saying like you need to read the manga, or at least like read the source material, like the light novel. And it's wildly different. Like the whole feel of the show, the whole feel of the series is different. The action that happens it is entirely different. It's still like edgy and it's still pretty cliche isekai, but it has a different feel from the anime. But that is like just design, like pure directorial, like design standpoint, where they wanted to go a different direction and it didn't really pay off. Which also, kind of reminds me of like Hanabado. I mean, we all watched Hanabado.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, like we had a lot of discussion about that show, and from what it seemed like was the manga itself was just a lot more likable. Characters are likable. I mean, I don't know, Drew, like, do you remember watching Hanabado and just wondering what was happening?
You erase that from his mind.
Just delete it.
That's why I wanted to call him out.
Well, why do you think like some of these things get lost in translation so bad? Do you think it's like the director pushing the show in one direction and the light novelist or the manga author just like has no say in it? Or do you think it's like because of the time constraints of a show? Because it's like I feel like a lot of times we have conversations around like, why did this happen? Kind of like the question you just asked me. It's like, well, why does it happen? Why is it getting lost in translation?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a specific reason for it? I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
I have an idea. For me, it's like when I read something, a lot more of it is left up to my own imagination. Whereas when you're watching something, it's kind of given to you. And so if I see something that's like annoying or, supposed to make you upset, my mind's going to frame it in a way that's more enjoyable or, specific to me. Whereas when it's like force fed to me, not necessarily force fed, but comes from like an anime perspective, it's how the director envisioned it. And so if they envision a character a certain way where I may not have, one example for me is like Black Clover. Reading it, I did not mind the main character. And then I go to watch it, and he's the worst thing ever. So, like, literally, he's awful. And so it's like, I can watch him, and you can read that he's yelling all the time. But you imagine the yelling in a different way, more of just like he's kind of stupid and manic, as opposed to literally just like, yelling all the time. And so
you imagine it like Dragon Ball Z yelling, where they're like hyping everybody.
Yeah, they're like, come on, guys.
Yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you read it in a different way. Your mind frames it in a way that you're going to more likely to enjoy. You're going to imagine it that way. Unless, of course, it's, there's certain writers where the way they write it is how you read it almost always. One example, I think, is like Stephen King. He does a very good job of writing it, because everybody I've known who've read a Stephen King book, and certain ones just translate the same way to like everyone. They're like, that's real fucked up. That guy made me mad. Like, it just kind of depends. But
I do believe, though, that Stephen King does get a lot of input into movie adaptations.
He does. He does now. I think there were a couple he didn't like. Like, he puts the input in, you mean?
Yeah, I think like he has more clout to put the to put his own input, just kind of like other stuff. I don't know how much George R.R. Martin had in Game of Thrones, because that kind of just went completely.
Up until the sixth season, he was heavily involved. Season 7, I think even like season 6, but yeah, even season 7 is when he said that he was stepping back and letting the show creators kind of.
That was a mistake.
He was having some sort of input, but he wasn't involved in plot after that.
See, that's the thing. It's just like a lot of times when you have a good adaptation, it's because the original creator has a lot of clout. Whereas like a lot of these other shows, I don't think the original creators get a lot of say unless it's something like Sword Art Online. Like, Sword Art Online is like the only example I can really think of a show where the actual creator has heavy involvement in the actual anime production.
I think
Attack on Titan.
Attack on Titan.
Yeah.
Creators also was pretty involved.
So
but I think the thing with
like that's like a big thing. If the original creator doesn't have say, then like sometimes you just get people that fuck it up, like with Game of Thrones and.
Sure. And I think the thing with like Game of Thrones as an
so
example
bad.
again, is that
Why are
he
you
told the
reminding me of this?
creators, the show writers, that like the direction that he wanted to go in and where characters were going to be, or end up like towards the end of the the end of the series, but he didn't say like how he was going to get there. And I think that's also something that manga writers kind of will let show creators know. It's like the manga is already there as like this pre-existing plot, and the anime production companies, their job is to fill in the plot with visuals. What gets kept in and left out is entirely up to them, as long as they still like remain true to what the plot is in a nutshell. I think,
No.
because bringing back like the Arifureta, people were saying that they left out maybe like 12 chapters from the manga, and it was all just not really filler, but it was
Filler.
it was like them traveling or meeting different people, which yes had some sort of minor impact on the plot, but it may not be entirely relevant. And like that kind of decision making kind of gets people upset, because it's like, oh well, like when you get to see them involving with other characters, even in like the very like minor details, those are details that build up characters in the long run. And when you don't involve or don't include that into the anime, that's something that kind of gets left out, and that's where you get that like lacking in character development.
Well, now like this goes back to the question of like, for example, Koi no Katachi, like technically that adaptation, like if you're coming from a manga reader or a manga perspective, like there's a lot of issues with it, and the main issue with that being Shoko's character development. But like if you look at the movie like subjectively, like the movie itself succeeded because they changed the approach to just being a movie about the growth of uh
The dude.
what's his name,
I don't remember.
Don't remember.
main character, the main guy.
Don't remember
Main
his
dude.
I'm
name.
googling it. Continue.
But like they turned it into a movie that was just about his growth, and Nishimiya kind of just fell to the side, and so
Yes.
that was the main issue that I had with the adaptation.
Shoya Ishida.
Yeah, Ishida.
Ishida.
Yes.
But like that film has like a lot of high praise
Yeah,
for
it is.
people that haven't read the source material. So it's like you have this thing where it's like, do you give creative license to the staff, or do you like try and follow the source material as religiously as possible? Because like no matter what, like you'll have issues. It's like if you try and follow the source material religiously, and the source material itself has a lot of like plot holes or like whatever, like let's say the source material itself is pretty weak, then like like the staff's gonna get flamed for like going like, oh, why didn't they fix this, why didn't they fix that? But then again, you go in a completely different direction where like you make a full on different interpretation of the source material, and you get something like Koi no Katachi, but like there's issues with that because like some other characters get portrayed, in a different way that makes you go like, oh well, like the manga did it better, that kind of. So it's like
Right.
there's this like, what's the better way to go about it?
Yeah, I think the thing with that too is that like you have to keep in mind from like adaptation standpoint, manga has the time to stretch things out. As a reader, you're able to read it as quickly or as slowly as you want, but in a manga, you're able to like linger on big pages, on splash pages, or you're able to draw intense, character like facial expressions, or you can draw inner monologue, or you can include that kind of stuff. In an anime, you may be limited to 12 episodes to try to get through a certain arc of a story, or if you're lucky, you get two core and you have 26 episodes or something. Or it's a movie adaptation of a pretty
And you have an
short
hour and
standing.
45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So you can only get through so much in that time. So like again, like what's relevant and what's gonna keep the heart of the story there. What's gonna keep your heart of the cards?
Why did I know you were gonna do that?
I just like thought of sorry. Yeah, I mean, like I think timing is like a huge thing, and that has to have like really really big impact on yeah, I guess like just choices in general. Um, I don't know. It seems tough to try to like cut things out of something that you already know is there and is popular, um, or keep things in. Because I mean, if you have like a long running show, like say like One Piece or Naruto, it's like eventually
Too long.
the anime is gonna catch up to source material. So you have to include filler.
Then you create a filler, yeah.
Right, but it's like at that point, like that you can include all these like kind of smaller details, just to take up time.
Well,
I mean, at that point, you should just make a movie where it's like some random fighting or some shit, like Dragon Ball Z did. Like, hey,
Ball
just
Z.
make
they
Broly
do
fight.
that.
Just make Frieza come back from the dead as like a big old robot and have him fight. And okay,
Well,
now
there's
we got
something
more
about
stuff.
there's something about that that's entertaining too. It's it's all up to the style of show. I think I think that's what a lot of it comes down to. Like some of these like shonen shows maybe a little bit easier to, or like shonen action, I guess I would say maybe a little bit easier to adapt because it's kind of senseless fighting a lot of the time. Some of the shows, and Mark, I was kind of thinking this as you were talking, shows that have a lot of inner dialogue generally do not do as well, or like shows that are more focused in talking and less action. Those seem to struggle with the time constraints. I at least the shows that I've watched. And I know like when we watch those type of shows, especially on this podcast, we generally like the ones who pace things well, have fleshed out characters, but don't treat the viewer as an idiot and explain literally everything. And it's just hard to kind of find that balance in a 12, 13 episode show, I think.
How long was I don't even remember the Orashiri we did last season.
Death Parade.
Death Parade. How long was that? Because that's a good
12
example
episodes.
of a lot of talking without like
Yeah.
insulting
That's-
the audience.
That's an original show, though.
It's an
isn't it?
original.
I know. I just
think
mean like as a show that talks a lot, and it's mainly
like Death
based off
Death
the
Note
dialogue.
was Death Note's a pretty good adaptation, I thought. Because I read source material before I watched the show. But I don't think I got through the entirety of the show just
Wow,
because of like how slow and like
Is it
long
'cause
it is.
it's so hard for you to read back then?
Yeah, I can just look at pictures and
And understand.
Listen and understand.
Yeah, I do think Death Note's a good example of that. Although like the ending of the show, and I don't know if it's like the anime's fault, but it's like the ending of the show is just like kind of a
It's-
letdown. The second half of the
Yeah.
show is definitely not as good as the first
Okay, maybe
half.
I did finish it.
No,
But
no spoilerinos.
no spoiler, no. But yeah, I think I do. I think I know what you're talking about because even when I read it, I was kind of like just rushing to get through it because I was like, this story at this point is just kind of convoluted. Like they just threw in so many elements to it that I was.
They had the
kinda
perfect
lost interest a little
opportunity
bit.
to end it, and
Yeah. and decided to keep it going.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
Alec,
Mm-hmm.
like you had read all of Ancient Magus Bride when we were watching it, right? Like
Yeah.
that felt
Or
like
most of
that's
it.
like a pretty dialogue heavy show too. Like, what did you think of the adaptation?
I mean, I liked the manga a little better in general. I think some of the moments that really were like good in the show are where she kind of talked with Nevin, and I thought they did those excellently. They really took those moments where she grew from a conversation with someone and translated it onto the screen. But like, some of the other places that I didn't like some of the characters as much as I did in the manga. Because I felt like some of them were a little shallow because they didn't have the same amount of time on the screen as they did in the manga. So that's, I think, where it struggled. But they did a good job of translating the dialogue and like the meaning behind the big dialogue points across on the anime. So yeah, that's what I thought. But otherwise, I don't know. I kind of liked seeing that one actually on the anime too, because when I was watching it, like the visuals looked like they'd be really cool. That's where it really excelled over the manga, was like being able to see everything that they envisioned in it, and like we kept talking about like the Ghibli-esque kind of aspect of that show, and so it really excelled there, even if it was lacking kind of in some of the character development. But
I think it's a good point too. Like when you're reading a manga and you're seeing like, you know, these really well drawn like pictures, seeing them like colorized and animated and moving is like a whole different experience. And I think that's why like anime movies do so well too, because you're able to have these production studios put in so much more effort and time into making sure that every single frame, you know, is like really well drawn. And all that time it comes off, because I mean you get these movies like, you know, like Your Name, or Koi no Katachi, that are really really well drawn and, you know, heartfelt movies. Or yeah, exactly, or movies that are coming up like Promare that looks amazing. Yeah, and like you're able to like visualize, like actually see it all like come to life, you know, from page to a movie screen is it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I think if you have a good adaptation of the visuals, like you'll get that sort of deja vu feeling where you're like, wait, have I seen this before? But you're just like, oh no, like this is just the manga panels like coming to life in front of your eyes.
Like in those really big moments, you get the like that chill, like the chills down your arms or like down your back. I know I got that when I was watching Ancient Magus' Bride. Like some of those really cool moments, you're like, oh, this is so cool. Like I spent all that time reading it, now I get to see it. It's like being there. It's just really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
All
I think another one that we have on the list too that I wanted to mention to you, Rolando, because you introduced me to Kaguya, to like you told me that I should read it. So Love is War, it was a show that we covered earlier this year, I think.
Yep.
It was and that's like a really good, like very different show, like it's, you know, comedy style, but I mean that's an entertaining show as it is. Reading the manga is also like very different, because that's like very text heavy too. But you get these like short snippets of like in like deep into the character, where you see like, you know, minute facial expressions, or you see that like the way like somebody's acting or something in the background, that don't always come across in the anime.
And that was a very good adaptation too.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It was very good. But yeah, like some of like the very small like some like minor details or things that like get left out. Yeah, and I think that was probably one of the recent ones that I really enjoyed, that I would, you know, highly recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
On that point too, it seems very hard to get that balance of how much like internal dialogue you show, because I actually knew someone who specifically didn't watch most anime because they hated when they would like cut to internal dialogue and the person would be thinking what they were saying. They were like, it's really annoying. They like, if it happened too much, I mean, like, this isn't really like the best opinion, but it's, you know, it's someone's opinion. And so I'm wondering, like, you know, there's probably other people out there who are like, I don't like that internal dialogue. I don't mind reading it, but when it cuts in and they're thinking stuff, it's just weird. And so, you know, maybe they're trying to balance, because if you have too much, it might seem weird to people. And then if you don't get enough, you don't feel like the characters are fleshed out. So, yeah.
Do they like
It's hard.
Shakespeare?
I think they used to read a lot of Shakespeare, actually. But
Because Shakespeare uses a lot of soliloquy. So, you know, it's a very used
I mean, it's not my opinion.
literary.
I didn't agree with
motif.
it. I
No, but,
literally
like, it
argued
makes
with
sense, I
them for
think.
like 45 minutes about why they were wrong, but they were like, no, it's stupid. I was like, all right, keep then. I don't
Like, I
talk
can
to them
see
anymore
it, like,
because of that. Not
you
because of
could
that.
get like this kind of disconnect from watching somebody have an interior monologue, because you kind of equate that to like, well, I don't know what you're thinking right now, so like it just doesn't make sense to like be able to see it. But when I'm reading it, it's different because I want to know what people are thinking because I can't see them, can't see their facial expressions, or I can't see what they're doing. So I want to know, like, how they're feeling. I guess I could see that, but
I mean,
It's like
yeah.
hearing it out loud ruins it for them. It's like when you're reading it inside your internal head. They're
Yeah.
thinking in their head. You can kind of relate to it a little bit more, but like the act of hearing it aloud kind of ruins it for people. I guess I can see that.
I mean, that was kind
mean-
of kind of his argument, I guess. It was a long time ago. For the life of me, that's all I really remember. But it was just, I don't know.
Blacked it out. It was too traumatic for you.
Yeah.
I get it.
Exactly.
It's like, I think it's just a lot of times when they adapt that kind of stuff, they just do it poorly. It's just like, you don't want to
That's
just
the
watch
thing.
someone just sitting there talking to themselves, but like, there's other ways of adapting that sort of inner monologue than just the standard talking over like random like montage, or there's other ways of employing it that I feel like maybe these studios are not tapping into.
I think like the one way that I kind of enjoy it is when you have the monologue going, and then you pair it with like mood setting music or music that like kind of sets like how they're thinking. I think Death Note is a good example of that. They would play like really intense music while he's like plotting like how to get around certain things. This is a different medium, but I'm playing Catherine since I unboxed it finally, and there's a lot of internal dialogue that goes on in that game, but I feel like it's done well because it sets up the story. You understand what the main character is feeling, and you can empathize with him. But it is staged in a way that the music that plays while he's doing that is like when something intense is happening, it's really intense, or when something funny is happening, it's funny or serious or whatever. And I feel like the music sets the mood in that fairly well.
That's a good
I think
point.
another topic for
Yeah.
us, like music in anime.
oh,
Oh.
by that effort garden.
I'm out of beverage, Mark. But yeah, that is a good.
That is a good example, though.
Yeah. Ancient Magus' Bride. I thought they did a good job with music.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
Ancient
so, too.
Magus Bride, like you can do a whole discussion on
Really
that.
good music.
Mhm.
They had
Yes,
some like
music.
good like cultural music too. I think that was what was so impressive.
Mm-hmm. It's
Alas.
Alas. We digress.
That is not our topic this week.
It is not, no. We could have a whole
Sorry.
nother discussion
Get
just
into
about that. So, come on, Mark,
Yeah.
calm down.
Sorry.
Is there any specific like light novels we want to focus on too? I know we talked about a lot of anime, and Rolando, you'd brought up SAO. I know Danmachi, currently airing, sort of the kind of the same style as SAO a little bit. Anything else we want to mention about those two, or any others that you can think of?
I mean, I'm not really. I haven't read a lot of light novels.
I haven't read any.
I think the most recent one I've read is a Korean light novel. That's currently being like transposed and into like a manhwa or Korean manga. And that was it's a really good series. And I brought it up before. It's called Solo Leveling, or ILM
Oh, yeah, you
Level
talked
Up.
about that.
Wherever you find it, it has a different translation. But it's really good. But that was a different one that's also seems kind of hard to translate into a manga itself, because it's like from a light novel perspective, things are like characters are very fleshed out. You're able to describe things really well. You get that interior monologue or interior dialogue. You get more characters that may pop up that don't really make the cut in a manga or in like a Korean manga, which is like usually just long strip format. So they're like very small panels, or they're really like long panels that are just full page type of deal. So it's like a bit of a different medium than like a traditional manga. So a lot of stuff tends to get cut out of that. but I don't know if they're considering making an anime out of it. I think it would do really well. I think it'd be really cool to watch, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I haven't done more than read a few excerpts of certain light novels, like if I've seen the anime. So, like, and the only light novels I own are in Japanese, and I can't read everything. So
I own
You'll get there.
manga,
Get
but
there.
it's Naruto and Tokyo Ghoul.
Ooh. Ooh.
Ooh.
All right.
But yeah,
Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to talk about adaptations?
I'm gonna let you guys continue, and I'm gonna run to the restroom.
oh,
There
you
you
drank
go.
all that tea so fast.
It's got a
He
potty.
was
so-
saying Violet Evergarden to himself. Well, he's just like, oh, Violet
He's
Evergarden.
like just chugging his tea.
All right.
Oh man.
So we'll let him do that. I guess we can slowly transition into our happy hour then.
Yes. Speaking
so-
of adaptations.
Yeah, speaking of adaptations, there's Danmachi. Let's talk about that first. It kind of we ended our arc. Freya's a crazy bitch.
Dude.
Super intense. Like she slaps Ishtar. She goes falling and gets isekai
Dude.
back to the god world.
Dude, she slapped her back to heaven, dude. That was lit.
I just want to say why. So all of a sudden, why is it okay for them to just be killing each other? I just don't understand. Like the show has never been like
See you
about
later.
like killing the other people and the other guilds. All of a sudden it's okay for Freya's guild to just come in and kill people in
Like
in
literally
Ishtar's guild.
destroyed their whole like district of the town, like destroyed their home, and then bitch slaps the god back to heaven. Like what more could you ask for?
That's what doesn't make so much sense. Like, doesn't make sense to me in the second season. It's like, yeah, now everything stakes are higher, and people like gods are literally getting sent back to heaven. People are dying now.
There's like
and not from the
manipulation and
dungeon.
shit.
Yeah, there's some kind of like deeper like scheming that's going on.
Yeah, like Hermes
I
is
was
talking
totally
shit.
fine with getting more drama in the dungeons, man. That's what I was expecting.
Where is the picking up of the girls in the dungeons?
Yeah,
Where
where's
is
the
it?
dungeon?
Where's
He
the
just-
dungeons
just
and the
fought-
picking up of the girls?
And
He
Bill
fought a
got
whole
picked up out of the
district.
dungeon.
he fought a whole district of Amazonians that were after his.
Instead,
After
Belle
his
got
chastity.
picked up by
That's what I was
Amazonians.
looking for.
Belle got picked up by
Nothing
Amazonians
terrible.
instead.
AKA Titans.
Titans.
But
Some of them weren't Titans.
no, just the one.
Just the one.
But she met a timely end, and it's
She
good
did.
to see her.
She
good
got
to
her
see
wrist
go.
crushed and her face smashed.
And her nape
Her
cut.
head, yeah, her nape cut.
See you later.
Did you guys already talk about the end to Ishtar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just how it's just slap. I just
slap
cracked
off
up.
the
I was like,
tower.
this is so stupid. Like,
I laughed too.
oh my god, I just
Uh,
laughed. I was like, this is
I-
dumb,
Pretty good hearty chuckle after that one.
right? It's just
Then,
like, what? Really? This is the okay. All right.
Well, and then what everyone expected, Belle, Shoryuken,
Dude, I was thinking that
straight up Shoryuken,
rocket
and
punched
it saved Haruhime like we all thought would happen. I mean, could it go any other way?
No.
Probably
In this show,
not.
no.
Yeah.
It could.
I don't know.
But they won't.
I feel like every week we kind of talk shit about this show, but every week I still kind of look forward to it just because it's so stupid. It's like I want to see how the stupidity
Well,
like
it's like-
rounds itself out.
On the freeway, everybody wants to look at the car accident. You know, everybody wants to look over. That's what we're doing here. Everybody's
don't
looking.
What
think
are they
it's
gonna?
I
What are
don't
they
think it's
gonna
like
do?
a dumpster fire like some of the
No.
other shows
No.
that like, we've been so inclined to watch, but it's still like an enjoyable watch like week to week. It's still
Yeah.
fun. Whether or not
just
we
so
know what's
dumb.
gonna happen.
It's just
No, you
so
know what's gonna
Well,
happen though. It's
what's,
obvious
what's
what's
gonna
happen.
But what's gonna happen
I didn't
next week?
expect her to get slapped off the tower, though.
Okay,
That
There
I
you
did.
go.
I
That's where they
expected
get
something
you.
a little more exciting than
They,
and her just
lead-
falling off. Like,
they lead you over to the river, and then they push you into it.
I'm
See
just
you
like,
later.
really, of everything, you just slap her, like,
Nothing
and you
personal,
just sort
kid.
of fall off. That's it.
She like moseyed her way over to the edge, and I'm like, oh, is she gonna fall off the edge? And yeah, there she went.
Yep,
And then
See you later.
she fell out of the play area, and so she got teleported back to
back to heaven.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no
Yeah,
respawns this
So
time.
she had
dude.
got respawned over there.
GG no re.
GG.
Alright. See ya later. Yeah, I'm curious what they'll do in the next episode because there was nothing else that we didn't see in the opening. So, an original last episode. Nice.
It's gonna be Bell and his new harem of Aisha
It's
and
just gonna be a
Yeah.
cleanup at the house. Like, oh my god, we get, and then another
Yeah.
bath
Yeah.
scene.
Probably. Yeah, I like that. Ended on a strong note.
Yeah.
Ended on a strong
Yeah,
note.
yeah.
Just full of fan service.
Let's get some more slapping.
Nice. Yeah.
There you go. All right.
Slappers only.
Let's go into Fire Force. So, like, speaking of pacing, I feel like the pacing's going pretty well here, and we kind of get hinted at the next big baddie, the evangelist, and then show.
You almost said Evangelion.
I almost.
I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah, the Avas are coming out. They're next now.
She's
No,
about to show up.
but I think it's gonna be interesting what happens in the next arc, if we're gonna get resolution, or if they're gonna fight that group, because they look pretty crazy. His brother looks pretty crazy. Kind of got the same aesthetic going on, but he's like pure and white and probably has crazy firepower. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna be cool. I wonder if he can wield a sword because he had that sword.
Yeah,
So
he
does
did
he
have
do
a
a
sword.
plasma
Maybe he's got a
sword?
fire katana or something.
Yeah.
Is this where Arthur came from, or whatever the fuck that guy's name is? Was he
Oh,
one
he's
of
a
them?
double.
Is
He's a
he
double
one of them?
agent.
He wields
double
the sword,
agent.
and he was randomly lost in the desert, and now he's just
Yeah.
randomly
And now
back.
he's back. Yeah.
With that, there's no explanation there. I was like,
No.
are we gonna get
You
that
don't need
eventually,
one.
or
There's,
he
no-
just-
there's no.
he's just an
there's
idiot.
nothing
he's
behind
just
it.
an
Nope.
idiot?
He's,
There's
yep.
nothing behind it. Are
He's
you
got
sure?
lost.
Are you sure?
The
Yeah.
sword,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
sword wielders.
Lost-
That's what we talked
lost
about.
swordsman. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, oh, he's
yeah,
back
man.
now. Oh,
Shows a badass, man. It's gonna be cool.
The one thing that I kind of like to see was all the captains, and like we talked about it, like each one's kind of got their own agenda, and you can tell by like kind of where they were sitting in the room, as well as like having very drastically different personalities. So it's cool to kind of see everybody together.
I want to see the
get
seventh
somewhat of a
blow some shit up.
yeah. I want to see him fight. They sound like a ragtag group of guys willing to
Yeah,
do
just
whatever
kick
it
some
takes.
nuts
Yeah.
and
Like how
titty
they
twister.
I think we
make
I
them
think we
look
get to them pretty soon.
they make them look like they're
He
just
does
like
the loose finger, but with firepower, and it's like, what boom! And it's like, oh.
they make them look like they're not like good or whatever.
They're like delinquents.
Yeah, but like I bet you they're probably like some of the better like good-hearted
Truest
people, I guess.
fire.
They can't be bought by different
Yeah.
organizations or whatever, and so they just kind of play by their own rules. But at
They
the end
just
of the day,
care
it's
about their
probably like
neighborhood.
good that they do that.
They just care about their
Yeah.
neighborhood. They were the neighborhood watch.
Yeah,
That's what he said.
Yeah,
it's true.
yeah,
It's true.
true.
Mark, you chuckle, but it's
Pretty
the
much it.
facts.
That's pretty much It's pretty much it.
I had a quick comment. So there's Maki and there's Tamaki.
Yeah.
That was so confusing to me first. Like, 'cause I'm
Really?
like, well, it's like, did they shorten her name and they're calling her
No.
Maki now? And I'm like, no, the other
No,
one's
there's
name is
Maki and there's Tamaki.
I feel like that was a strange choice to make them so close.
There
but,
should be Mato and Tomato.
Oh,
Tomato-chan, kawaii daisuki.
Tomato-chan.
yeah. I think they
Anyway.
just couldn't think of any other girl names.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
their
they're like, oh,
their
fuck.
No
sister,
other ones.
their
There's
sister,
no other ones.
Yeah. Sister.
Sister,
and,
princess.
Sister, Princess Hibana. Maki Tamaki.
Maki Tamaki. Easy.
Easy.
Alliteration.
All right, we got it. Perfect.
We're good.
Oh, and they named the perpetual power plant Amaterasu too. That was cool.
Well, that's probably more of a mythological
Yeah, yeah.
ad.
I thought it was cool.
Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shinra, get in the fire truck.
He wants to fight. He's gonna fight.
Get a fire truck.
All right.
We get like the return of Joker too. And
yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I really like his character. I think
I think
Joker
super cool.
is one of the most interesting
I think
characters that we've seen so far.
This whole episode, that scene where they talked was my favorite scene. The way they
He's
did
like-
the camera work on his face when he leaned in and stuff, it was really cool. It was unique.
What's his alignment? Do you guys think like chaotic neutral? I feel like he just like wants to stir up shit, but doesn't like align with the church. Doesn't align with like the evangelist or whatever. He just kind of does his own thing.
But he's working with that guy in the lab coat, right?
Yeah.
The one with the nose.
No.
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 Big hair.
The hair.
He looked like
Oh.
Spike Spiegel.
Yeah, but with like giant hair and kind of.
They might be a different group. I don't know.
I think
Yeah,
they're
maybe a
different
third
group.
outlier group. Mm.
Yeah, I think there's something else. I was leaning towards thinking like they're some sort of good. Their agenda isn't bad necessarily. Their means might
like-
be bad, but like their goal might be good. I don't know, because he doesn't seem like a bad guy. He just sort of seems like a dude that's there doing shit. Like you said, kind of chaotic neutral. I don't know though.
I feel like that would be chaotic good. Chaotic neutral, I think,
Yeah.
fits him a bit better because we're a little ambiguous on what his motives are. Because if he's just if he's just doing stuff for the shits and for the fun of it, then that's kind of more neutral. If he's doing stuff because he wants the world to end or whatever, turn Earth into another sun, and that's more like just chaotic evil.
I don't think that's him though. It doesn't
Yeah,
seem like
doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it.
Yeah,
No.
I'm curious to see kind of how he develops it, and if we get like a third group, because like right now it's like pretty divided. You have like you like what I said before. They're like sitting in the church like the same way. It's like one group. It's like with the church. One group kind of trying to figure out what's happening. One group that serves
The science, hygiene.
the science, hygiene and stuff. So
One people
to add
don't give
more,
any shits.
just want to experiment on people.
They're like the logical evil.
You also have like the military too.
Mhm.
It's like
And then you have the three
four,
mascots, and they're their own group, obviously. They just want to eat
Just
on the
drinking
roof
beer
and chill out,
and
yeah. What a
Drinking,
good life,
eating
right? You
fast
just gotta walk
food.
around in that suit all the time, but what a good life. Just chill on a roof, eating and drinking. You make a living that way. Dope.
Very cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cheeton.
Oh yeah,
Cheeton?
Cheeton. Oh man,
Cheeton is also
no,
there,
Cheeton
yeah.
is definitely chaotic evil.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one goes at 24, so not ending next week. So we'll get to see at least probably 2, maybe 3 more arcs. You think, Mark?
Yeah, I think probably like another 3.
Cool.
There's a
They've
couple of quick ones, and then I think I have an idea where they're gonna end it.
That's what I was gonna ask. After kind of who they introduced this week, you probably thinking where they'll stop it. Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool. Yeah, let's move into our closing segments then. Any announcements before we jump into news?
Yes, Mark and I are gonna talk about the Araburu season finale or series finale. I don't know what they're gonna do with it. It doesn't seem like it's gonna get another season, but they're ending it in a spot that leaves open another season. So we're gonna talk about our impressions of that show, kind of more on like adaptations. Then
An ad.
oh yeah, You want to talk about that, Alec?
Yeah, so we're gonna do. Well, I want to watch Clinad because it's been hyped up so much now. So we're gonna watch it again. We're gonna figure kind of more details out, but we're gonna watch it as a not necessarily together as a group, but watch it as a group and then have it as a separate kind of shot sort of thing just about Clinad. Either later in the month or early next month, we'll figure that out and announce again. But we'll be doing that for Clinad, so that'll be cool. Keep a lookout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Follow us on Twitter to keep up with the updates and everything on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that is at Anime on Draft. I'll just give a quick overview. I'm almost done with one of the endings in the new Catherine full body that I unwrapped, and it is very cool.
You unwrapped the body?
Ooh,
The full body?
That's right.
Oh, damn, dude.
Wow.
It's not that they the core gameplay is still there, which I like the puzzle aspect of it, but it is changed a little bit with the addition of the new character, though I don't know how she's going to tie into it in the end. It's been very ambiguous as to what her overall role is going to be, but hopefully by next week I will have at least one ending done and I can talk about that a little bit more. So
Talking about
we'll
Quathrin.
play it. It's fun. Yeah, Quathrin. Yeah. I was gonna say too how they introduce her. So she has amnesia, and she just remembers that her name is Catherine, but she the main character gives her a cell phone and she adds her name onto it and she spells it with a Q. She's like, I don't really know about the spelling, but I remember that this is my full name.
Quathrin.
Quathrin.
I'm like, what?
Is this the best form of Quathrin?
I guess.
Quathrin?
Quathrin. By the way,
So-
our Twitter handle is right
They
there.
they just call her Rin though, so it comes up once and then everybody forgets about it. It's like this didn't happen.
You're just like, all right, we're just gonna skip over that fact.
It's like it was like a quick 2 seconds and like everyone agrees with it and it's like fine.
All right, that's the way to get least confused with the other two. So
The other cool thing about it, Rolando, I haven't done it, but you can buy DLC. It's like $21 for like all of it, so I don't really want to do it. But you can play as Joker. You can also play as the full cast of Persona 5 online with that DLC. The thing that bummed me out, I wanted to play another ending in Japanese because actually the English is pretty good. It's $7.99 for the Japanese
you have
voice
to buy
pack.
the Japanese voices.
What?
And I'm like, no,
$8 for
I'm good.
Japanese voice pack. What?
I'm good.
That's not
I'm
something.
good.
That's not something that Atlas would do on their own. That's definitely a Sega decision right there.
So I'm like, it's crazy. So you playing as Joker in the main story, $3.99. Voices, $7.99. So
What is that?
Yeah.
Vincent already looks like Joker. That's like the whole
yeah.
meme about it. Is that everyone
Exactly.
thought Joker was Vincent when
Yep.
Persona 5 was
Yep.
revealed.
Speaking of Persona, I'm gonna get into this this week. So
Ooh.
Don't erase my save.
too late. I'm just kidding.
Fuck.
It's like done.
Damn
Did
it. Now I gotta start all over because I was so far.
Yeah, you'll have to tell us about that because man, that game is sick. And also speaking of things that you can do in the game that you don't have to pay for, the jukebox has a ton of Atlas music. So they have like Persona 4, Persona 5, the dancing games, some things from Persona 3. So like as I'm going around talking to characters in the bar, I'm just like bumping like Shadow World and like all these like other like super
Mass
nostalgic-
Destruction.
Yeah, Mass Destruction, like all these like super like nostalgic Persona songs. So at least they didn't make me pay for that. I get that.
I can't wait for Mark to start playing Golden. That's gonna
Oh,
be
it's
good.
so good.
Well, the music's really
It's so
good too.
good.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I
All
actually enjoyed
right.
that game. It was fun.
Let's move into some of our news
A lot of
then. Mark and Rolando, you guys were talking about this earlier, right?
Yeah, Premiere is the Trigger show or Trigger movie that they've been working on for the last couple of years. And this is one of their pet projects that has been heavily marketed. If you haven't seen ads for it, it looks really, really good. There's a trailer for it on our Twitter. But yeah, so it's in theaters. I think in select locations throughout the U.S. So go to AMC, I believe is who's holding it, or is it Regal? I think it might be Regal. But anyways, yeah, they're having airings on the 17th and the 19th. So go check it out. It looks good. I'm gonna try to see the subtitled version on Thursday, the 19th. Rolando, are you undecided about seeing the dubbed version?
On
Are you gonna
the
wait?
17th, I might just
Yeah,
wait. Like,
yeah,
I know I can't make the 19th, but
yeah. Tickets are sold out for one of the locations, but I think I can make it out to another one to catch the subtitled version. So yeah, that'll be good. I'll let you guys know how it goes.
It's on Fathom. Look it up on Fathom.
Fathom Events, that's the one. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm looking it up because I kind of want to go.
I want to go now too.
Yeah, if you go to the website, you put in your zip code,
Zip
and then
code,
it should
yeah.
show you
It'll show you where. it's
nearest
available.
theaters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very
So you can't go to the dubbed?
I don't really want to watch the movie dubbed.
Oh, I mean, subbed. You can't make it to the subbed. I meant the
It's
one on the
sold out.
It's sold out.
Oh. All right then. Well.
Yeah.
Sad panda.
Yeah.
Um,
Sad boy. But yeah, other than that, I'm excited. I think it's gonna be good. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I'll just go to the next piece of news. This is just something that I thought was really cool. This is also I retweeted this. There's a cup noodle company, Nissan, that has been airing advertisements that are like slice of life style anime of One Piece, and these are really well done. Like they're really cool. They're super short, but the latest one is about Nami, and it's pretty awesome. Like if you haven't seen this, please take a look at it because I would totally watch like a full fleshed out version of this anime. It looks awesome.
I can pull it up real fast.
Yeah, do that, my guy.
This looks like they did advertisements like this, but with Sazai-san, that long running manga series in Japan. It's popular in Japan, but like because the animation style is like the exact same as it says in here. Studio
It's
Ghibli's
playing on the
Kiki,
screen right now.
titular Heidi, Girl of the Alps, and Sazai-san in previous cup noodle ads. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go.
Playing without sound,
The,
but you can get
The
idea
first
of
one
it.
they did was about Zoro,
It's kind of blurry.
and that one was cool too.
All right.
It's playing without sound currently. It's cheese
We
curry.
we should also mention
Love that
That,
hat on their head.
Ghibli Fest is obviously ongoing. Just every month there's a Ghibli film that is airing in theaters. So if you are interested in seeing Ghibli films on the big screen, look it up. Just like look up Ghibli Fest.
It's also Fathom Events.
It's not just
Nice.
in random theaters. Like there are movie theaters like playing these films because like Disney is promoting the Ghibli films.
There's a really big like AMC here in Las Vegas that it's playing there. It's like a
Nice.
30 theater what do they call? Yeah, 30 theater. And they
30
have them in
screen
there.
theater. There
30
you go.
screen
Yeah,
theater.
30
Yeah,
screen
it's like a big one, and they've got them there. So they have a big old cardboard like sign next to the box office. Tells you when they're playing and all that.
Very
and
cool.
Which ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last month was
Yeah.
My Neighbor Totoro. What's this month's, Mark?
The Secret Life of Arrietty.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's Spirited Away.
Yeah, which I don't think I've seen.
Spirited Away is
Spirited
next
Away
one.
is
Yeah.
next.
I'm
I
so
want to see
excited.
it. I want to
Yeah.
see it in theaters. Yeah.
October 27th, 28th, and 30th.
You got to remind me so I don't
Yeah, yeah.
forget.
Yeah, I have it on my calendar. 'Cause
Nice.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna see if they have it in like a fancy theater too, where you can get dinner and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Cineopolis.
Cineopolis
Yeah.
or
That and
Percolate? Is it?
I really want to see that in theaters. I want to see Howl's Moving Castle in theaters
Howl's
because
Moving
Howl's Moving
Castle.
Castle is
I want to
dope.
see Princess
Yeah,
Mononoke.
the music is so good.
I want
I
to see
think
Princess
that's
Mononoke
Mononoke
is
in
good.
theaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
all the
Howl's Moving
classics,
Castle
man.
already went by though, didn't it?
I believe, yeah.
Damn. Sad.
Yeah.
I missed out.
Yeah, I think it was
You guys
like
gotta keep me up to
2
date.
months
2 months ago or something. Yeah.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
No worries, no worries. I didn't miss the big one though. My Spirited Away, that's my favorite
Yeah.
song.
Princess Mononoke.
What else we got on here? Yeah, I saw this too. Toonami premieres a new anime on October 12th, so coming up in the next month. They're going to premiere One Punch Man Season 2, Slideshow Edition, and Demon Slayer. So
Demon
they just
Slayer will
saw
be
Demon Slayer.
popular. That'll be
Yeah.
that's gonna pop up like crazy on social media once it goes
Yeah.
on Toonami.
yeah, and I was
It's
talking
so
to
good.
Mark about it a little bit, but I think I'm going to drop Vinland Saga to catch up on Demon Slayer.
I would.
Vinland Saga wasn't really doing it for me, and just like the character design itself in Demon Slayer just like really makes me want to watch it because it's very cool.
It's so good.
Um,
If you don't like Vinland Saga, Demon Slayer, watch it.
Demon Slayer is
yeah,
good.
I'm
It's
gonna
a good
start
one.
it up. I'm gonna start it up. Maybe after this, who knows? I every time I say this in my head, I always say it the wrong way. So can somebody say the short name to the show for me? Araburu.
Oh, we already talked about that. In the
Oh yeah, we already
announcements,
did
yeah.
talk about.
I don't worry about that.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about it.
Araburu.
Tell Araburu. All right. Man,
How are you gonna
it's
say it?
hard. It's hard for
Arabura?
me. Araburu.
Araburu.
I don't know. Ara.
Araburu.
Yeah. Ara.
Ara.
Yeah.
Ragi.
We gotta drink. If we all say it, we gotta.
I'm out. Yeah. So that's all we got for today. So thank you for joining us, especially if you were watching live here on twitch.tv/animeondraft. Make sure you follow us here so you get a notification when we go live. Also, make sure you hang out with Mark on Twitter, Anime on Draft, or at Anime on Draft. You
Please
can
do,
send
he
him a
needs
DM.
you. He's
You can
lonely.
tweet at him. You can like. You can retweet what he does. You know, just be there for him. He needs you. Just look at him. Look at that guy. Also, check him out on Instagram. Anytime we drink a new beer, generally we're posting it there. So our Instagram is Anime on Draft Podcast. So interesting
Posted a picture of a
beer.
flight just this past weekend.
Yeah, or
There it is.
breweries too.
Friday.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right. So check that out. We're also on Spotify. Check us out there, and all other places that podcasts are shown,
Mostly.
listened to.
Mostly all.
SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, and especially if you're going on like iTunes, make sure you drop us a like, 5 stars on there. Maybe even leave a little comment. You know, says what you think about us, and it really helps us out there. With that said, is there anything else that I think that's it for us.
I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Episode 116 in the books. We had a lot of little bits. We had adaptations. You know,
Little bits.
we did all that stuff.
We've got tiny people.
We got tiny
Yeah.
people.
Tiny people.
Anyway, so thanks for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.